In this video, we'll be talking about nutritional approaches to optimizing your endurance training program. Making smart choices around food when it comes to type, timing, and quantity are all very important goals throughout this program. What we're trying to achieve with this nutrition approach throughout this 90-day program is to make sure that your muscles have maximum glycogen storage to perform at their best during your training session, but also to replete that level of glycogen for the following day and your following training sessions throughout the week. When it comes to endurance training, our bodies are more faster to become fatigued. Therefore, putting in place nutrition interventions to minimize that risk is going to show you the best way to get the most out of this program. Optimal sports nutrition relies on three major areas: macronutrients, micronutrients, and hydration status. When we are going through more endurance type activities or sports, our bodies are going to become more depleted of electrolytes and also fluid. Therefore, hydration status is absolutely pivotal throughout the day, even when you're not training, but even more important during your training session. If you are someone who sweats a lot, you might consider adding in electrolyte-based supplements to your water throughout your training session. This is to make sure that your muscles are not depleted of these electrolytes, which will then cause you to seize up and create muscle cramps. It's also going to assist with recovery post-training session to really get you ready for your following training sessions. Macronutrients. So when we're looking at your protein, carbohydrate, and fat intake, we need to time them well according to your training session. So therefore, we should be focusing on pre-training nutrition, during and post or recovery nutrition. When it comes to micronutrients, this is more of a focus on vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. This is paramount, particularly those who participate in endurance type activities are more at risk of a depleted immune system. So therefore, we should be trying to increase your antioxidant intake from fruits and vegetables, and perhaps supplementation as well, to make sure that you are going to reduce your risk of nutrient deficiencies and also becoming sick or getting the cold or flu, which will in turn impact on your training and therefore not get the most out of the 90-day program. When it comes to an endurance training program, you should look at nutrition as fuel. Firstly, it's going to reduce your body's risk of glycogen depletion and allow your muscles to function at their optimal level without fatigue. It's also going to assist in repleting your glycogen storage when you finish a training session to make sure that you're prepared for the following training session. Hydration. This is going to minimize your risk of dehydration. So therefore, getting adequate amounts of fluid throughout your day is going to make sure that your body is not going to be at risk of that dehydration. And finally, reducing your risk of becoming sick. The last thing we want is for you to pick up a cold or an illness that is going to put you in bed or on bed rest for a few days. Therefore, by making sure that you're getting the right nutrition will minimize this risk. So when is the right time to fuel? As mentioned, we should be focusing on your pre-training meals or snacks, which should be consumed approximately 2 to 3 hours for a larger meal prior to your training session. Then you might consider having a smaller snack that is easily digested, which might be more liquid-based or semi-liquid based to help with absorption, which predominantly should be focused on carbohydrate. That can be consumed 60 to 45 minutes prior to your training session. If you plan on training for a longer period of time than 60 minutes, you might consider having some electrolytes or having some carbohydrate-based fluids throughout your training. If it's less than 60 minutes, Water alone should be enough to get you through your training session. The post-recovery meal from your training session should be consumed within 45 to 16 minutes for maximum benefit. This is making sure that your muscles are getting the right amount of nutrition in order to repair itself and also recover properly. This post-recovery meal should have a focus on protein. That protein intake will differ between your gender and also your age, your height, your weight, but more importantly, the intensity of your training program and also the duration of your program. A rough guide can be for women consuming as a minimum 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body mass. For men, you might be looking at a minimum of 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass. If the duration of your training sessions are longer, or if you feel that your intensity is higher, you might therefore try to increase that protein intake. Therefore, you might be looking at an intake of approximately 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body mass per day. This amount of protein does not necessarily have to be consumed in just the post-recovery meal. It should be spread out throughout the whole course of the day. The final thing to consider for an endurance training program is what type of carbohydrates you should be consuming. Prior to your training session, you might consider 3 to 4 hours outside of that, consuming more complex carbohydrates that are low glycemic index, which will be more slowly absorbed and digested, and therefore providing you better glycogen storage and longer lasting energy. 60 minutes prior to your training session, you might consider just increasing that storage of glycogen by consuming more simple based carbohydrates. These are carbohydrates that are higher in glycemic index, meaning that they will be digested and absorbed at a much faster rate and allowing for glucose to transport to the muscles. Therefore, topping up those stores will just give you the maximum amount of energy that your muscles require to participate in your training session. Some examples of complex carbohydrates here might be whole grains, particularly when it comes to breads, pastas, rice, and oatmeal. Examples of simple carbohydrates might include fruit, some vegetables, dairy, and even some sport drinks.